Just wanted to let you guys know before we get well and truly started in the video. Just swapped over to my account before recording to make sure the analytics were good, and I noticed I'm already at half of 1,000 subs, so that's pretty cool. Really appreciate y'all supporting the channel like that. I'm aware things are a little bit rough right now, but I'm still learning. I'm applying what I know, and hopefully I can make better content for y'all in the future. So yeah, really appreciate the support. So let's just get in the video. I am a massive fan of horror games. That much hasn't been made a secret for a very long time. I mean, hell, the first video I made on this channel was talking about Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion and all the cool references in that game. Though I may not be that old right now, as I just turned 20 yesterday, I've spent a pretty good portion of my life absorbing horror media because everybody around me has been a huge fan of it. I have very vivid memories of being a kid and watching the Freddy Krueger movies with my parents, because they thought it'd be a good idea to show that to me, and granted, it was. Hell, if I wasn't watching terrifying media with them, I was doing it on my own time through the advent of YouTube. I discussed this in one of my last videos, so I want to keep it a little bit brief for this for the sake of your own entertainment. For those who don't know, YouTube had a huge push for horror gaming content back in 2014. While the memory is quite fuzzy for me, because I wasn't really around at the time, and not only that, but the internet was nowhere near as big as it was today in the form of documenting media, so a lot of the older forms of horror gaming content was lost to time. And it certainly doesn't help that so many people were doing it, so it just clouded the water that much more. But don't worry, because with my little to no research, I am fully confident that the first huge horror game on YouTube came from a little known franchise, you probably heard of it, called Amnesia. This game was massive. I cannot fully put into words how big this game was back then for the landscape that YouTube was at the time. Everybody was playing Amnesia, and it skyrocketed a lot of careers. Hell, one you probably don't know of is Markiplier himself, one of the biggest names on YouTube. His original big break on YouTube came from Amnesia. Actually, how long ago was that? Oh my god, 10 years. Fuck, I'm old. Oh man. Anyway, point is, this was around the time when horror games in general got super huge. Developers saw countless people watching these videos of other humans playing trashy games online and thought to themselves, maybe if I make a really trashy horror game and get it popular with YouTube, I will get all that free advertisement and free publicity. As a result of this, a ton of very poorly optimized, half-baked horror games were pumped into the market very, very slowly over the course of the next 4 years. And unfortunately, a few of these ended up getting rather popular. One that immediately comes to mind is Slender the 8 Pages, which, if you haven't seen gameplay of it, it's pretty generic. It's just an empty open forest with black trees, and you wander around collecting items. Now keep this in mind, it'll be very familiar later on. With mountains and mountains of garbage being pumped into the horror game community, it's not surprising that people ended up getting sick of the smell of trash, and they decided to leave. Because of this, horror games on YouTube had a very slow die down. By 2013, pretty much anybody who did only horror content had moved on to shit like creepypastas or random garbage that people didn't really care about, because it was significantly easier to make a video on something like that than it was to play this old game that not many people really enjoyed. It didn't help that most of the market was AAA games that had nothing but cheap jump scares in it, or they would be clones of other previously made games. Like, hell, as I said earlier, Slender was really big at this time. In 2013, a year after the game came out, pretty much every horror game on Steam, or, well, GameJolt was what we used back then, was nothing but just rampant Slenderman clones. Hey, but all you YouTubers out there who only make videos on horror, don't worry, man, it didn't last long. Enter in the small indie game Five Nights at Freddy's. I can't even say it with a straight face. Enter in the small indie game Five Nights at Freddy's. If Slenderman was big, this game was massive. This game blew the hell up. This game started careers. You remember how I said that Amnesia: The Darkest Descent started Markiplier's massive YouTube career? Yeah, well, this game did that to the umpteenth degree. Everybody knew about Five Nights at Freddy's, alright? Your grandma knew about FNaF. Your grandma's pet rock knew about FNaF. Your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather's son's cousin's extended family member's dog knew about FNaF. I cannot, no matter how hard I emphasize it, explain just how many people knew about this game. This game was massive. It was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, explosions in the horror community that I think I've ever seen. And still to this day, I have no idea how Scott Cawthon managed to make this work. In my head, I truly do believe it was a mixture of getting into the space at the right time, with the right agenda and the right mindset in order to make this and make no mistake, as much shit as I give this game, it definitely is. It's a masterpiece of an experience. And as much as I would love to gush about it, I don't really feel the need to, because I'm not bringing up FNaF to talk about what a great game it is. No, I'm bringing this game up because it marks a very pivotal point where eventually the horror game franchises began to degrade. For those of you who've been living under a rock, Five Nights at Freddy's was the very first game that popped off enough to introduce mascot horror as a genuinely legitimate concept. There are countless other people that explain what exactly mascot horror is in line, so I'm not really going to go too deep into it, but I will give you the cut and dry basics of what it is. Mascot horror is when you take something that's by all means cute, sweet, and innocent, and twist and corrupt it into something that it shouldn't be, something terrifying, something that preys on the innocence that that object symbolizes. In the case for Five Nights at Freddy's, they took the nostalgia that children feel for these old school animatronic restaurants and the uncanniness that the robots have, and then bended it to meet something that it shouldn't be. Now these robots are alive and they're hunting you down, trying to kill you. And then as you do, you do the bing bang boom, and now you have $1 million. Okay, not really, but you get the idea. However, there's one massive downside to doing this, which I didn't mention for the sake of this point here, because video foreshadowing. By targeting a fear after childhood innocence, you are immediately by proxy targeting children themselves. You see, the reason why Five Nights at Freddy's worked as a horror concept is because the characters reminded adults of the uncanny nature of robots of old that they experienced when they were kids. However, for modern kids, modern children who never experienced these horrors themselves firsthand, all they see is a bunch of colorful animal creatures, and yeah, sure, the game franchise they're from might be terrifying and by all means not made for kids, at least at the time. But that doesn't really matter, because most people that call themselves a Five Nights at Freddy's fan never even played the games. They just interact with the community, and all they see are these colorful animal bunny creatures and just instantly go, oh my god, they're adorable. And this is both good and bad, because children are easily one of the fastest ways to make money if you're selling anything, because children will gobble up slop like it's the best thing they've ever tasted. However, by advertising your market to children, you are by proxy making everybody else extremely upset because they don't want to associate with the little baby kids game. That's the reason why people nowadays get fun of for playing shit like Fortnite and Minecraft and Roblox. What's that? You feel nostalgic for a game you used to play when you were younger and you want to go back and experience it? Oh bro, that's cringe. You should be based like me. Now I want you to keep that in mind. Now let's trail it back a little bit. Remember how earlier I was talking about Slender? Yeah, well, I told you it would come back up.
Welcome to Baldi's Basics in Education and Learning. That's me.
This game. Oh man, where do I even begin with this game? I am just going to drop all pretense and just say exactly what we're all thinking. This, by far, is one of the quickest made, cheapest cash grab games ever. And I can say that with 100% certainty, because Baldi's Basics in Education and Learning was made in a week. This was originally a Game Jam game and nothing else. For those of you who don't know, Game Jam is a short competition where you have to make a game in a very, very tight time frame and compete with other people. And that is how this game was made. And oh boy does it look it. Baldi's Basics in Education and Learning brings literally nothing to the table. It does not have a single unique idea to identify itself as. It is obviously and ashamedly a Slenderman clone. And before anybody jumps to the comments to say, no bro, it's not. Slender took place in a forest and Baldi's Basics in Education and Learning took place in a school. My friend, no. You remember how I said that countless games were made for Slender clones on Game Jolt back in the day? Well, it just so happens that one of these games took place in a school, and Baldi's Basics map looks suspiciously similar to that school. Hell, it even follows the same concept. Very tall, slender person chases you down, who gets progressively more aggressive as you collect objects around the place that you were told to find. And yet, despite this game was mad popular. And really, the fact that this game was popular is all you need to know. Any person can agree that this game is rushed, buggy, messy, it's not scary, it's not interesting at all. But it set the precedent that you don't have to make something good, interesting, or scary, you just have to make something that's popular for children, because they will drive home your sales. And I know some of you are probably saying, sales? This game didn't make any money. It actually did. Not long after Baldi's came out and it achieved meteoric popularity, the developer of the game put out a Patreon to help people fund him in making it even better. Now, if that sounds wrong to you, it probably should. You all need to remember, this was a game jam. This took a week to make, and now he's asking for an insane amount of money. Like, it wasn't a small amount of money. $50,000 at bare minimum to continue working on a game that you made in a week. Seems a bit extortionate, doesn't it? Well, it doesn't really matter what you think, because he hit the goal extraordinarily fast. Matter of fact, he went over the goal and then some. Last I checked was in 2020, and he had accumulated $61,000 for this very cheap game. And now the precedent has been set. You don't have to make a good scary game. You don't have to make a good game at all. You just have to make a game and advertise it to children, because children will slop it up regardless. And now with an army of screaming toddlers, they will continue to push other people who have better taste to play the game and thus advertise it further. This will cause an exponential growth, get more eyes on the game, and then eventually, boom, you're rich. You have a ton of money at your disposal. And that's exactly what the developers of Poppy Playtime did. Okay, now, I am not going to go into the details on this, because if I did, we would be here for days. The drama with this game runs so unfathomably deep that it is genuinely terrifying. It runs so deep that I can't even comfortably discuss this game without having the fear of spreading misinformation, because at this point, I don't know what's real and I don't know what's fake anymore. But I will say this. This game, by far, and its developers are some of the greediest people I have ever seen. Let's just drop all of the drama. We'll forget about all that. Let's talk only about the game. Say what you will, this game is pretty well made. Sure, it is not that stimulating to me, a grown man. However, I understand that the game was not targeted towards me. This game was targeted towards children. But at the very least, there was some legitimate effort put into this game. Say what you want about it, it looks fine, the textures are fine, the graphics are fine, it runs fine, the monsters are semi-interesting and unique. I mean, sure, I guess the concept of toys coming to life by no means is original, but the designs of the creatures themselves are fine. Here's where I take my problem with the game and its direction. This game was so obviously made to sell, and not just to sell itself either. Despite how well made the game is and how it looks, the first chapter of this was literally a glorified tech demo that you had to buy for $5. After you bought the game, congratulations, now you're gonna be shown countless advertisements, because guess what? This game has a fucking merch button on the homepage. Oh, but don't worry, because it gets better. before Chapter 2 of the game even came out, they were already selling toys of the Chapter 2 characters, including a color-swapped version of the original monster called Kissy Missy. Now, as we all know, blue and pink are the main colors used for literal toddlers based off their gender, and I find it very strange that your mascot character is blue, and then you have a color-swapped version of it, which totally wasn't just to save time modeling a new one, you just wanted to swap out some fabric, that is pink, so that you can advertise it to children. And I know I said that I wasn't going to talk about the drama, but fuck it, they are selling NFTs. Not even a joke. This game, put simply, is one of the greediest things I have ever seen in the market. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a grown man. I understand that we need money, but what people really don't like is having marketing pushed down their throat. And that is all this game is. But what would happen if you took everything I talked about in this video and made one big trash pile out of it? Well then, you would get Garten of BanBan. I have it written here in my script to tie in everything to this game, but you know what? To hell with the script. I'm going to put as much effort into talking about this game as they put into making the game. Much like Baldi's Basics, this game feels like it was made in a week. As a matter of fact, I know it was made in a week, because there are fully realized actual versions of this game made better on Steam right now, called Rebirth, which is a direct upgrade, and that game was made in a week by one person alone who had no prior video game experience. That is pathetic. But that's not all, because it also takes the mascot horror aspect from Five Nights at Freddy's. They have not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, but over 7 unique characters that are all extremely simple. It is just so obvious that they were made to target children. And guess what? Ooh, they have an evil side. They're big and scary and mean, and you should be terrified of them, little Timmy, because they're gonna kill you. But guess what else they also steal from? Poppy's Playtime. But they didn't steal the quality of that game. No, they just stole the greedy tactics of that game. This game also has a merch button. When this game came out, they were already announcing the second chapter, and the second chapter, by the way, is paid. And I could go on a very long rant on how it's very convenient that all of the characters are simple shape and in only one color, so that they're conveniently easy to make into plushies and toys, but, you know, what do I know? It is genuinely one of the biggest, most blatant, most obvious cash grabs I have ever seen in a video game. Literally, no effort went into this, and if you don't believe me, I just want you to listen to this fucking stellar voice acting they have in the game.
3 birds with 1 stone. I get all of your key cards, I get the perfect specimen, and I don't have to deal with that thing down there. And it's all thanks to you. Oh, come on. I didn't hit you that hard. Or maybe I did. Either way, it's best you take a nap while I prepare for our little surgery.
Yeah, you hear that? That is genuinely sad. And you know, that's one of the guys that made the game. You can tell he's happy with his life. And this game can be used to symbolize what the modern day horror community is like. It is nothing but cheap cash grab after cheap cash grab after cheap cash grab, endless ad infinitum. And I am just sitting here waiting. Just waiting for something good to come along and break the cycle, so that we can get more clones of something good instead of clones of something bad. Because as it currently stands, the state of horror in video games is an utter shambles. And honestly, I don't know how it's gonna be fixed, at least not off the top of my head. It's kinda sad. And don't get me wrong, it's not all negative. We have some just absolute bangers coming out every now and again, like Iron Lung, which granted came out a few years ago, but it really popped off this summer, and it deserved every bit of the attention it got for being a genuinely unique, genuinely interesting game, and I wish nothing but goodwill upon the developers who made it. But yeah, that's about it. For those of you that just came for the video, like, comment, subscribe, you can go ahead and leave. But for those of you that are more interested in me as a content creator, I have some things I want to talk about. One, the support that I have had these past few days, this past week probably by the time this video comes out, has been just insane. I've wanted to make a lot of these videos for a pretty long time, but I never ended up getting around to it because I locked myself into a box of creativity, making the one thing that everybody knew me for. And more recently, I decided to break out of that box, and I am so much more happy doing what I'm doing now than doing what people wanted me to do. And don't get me wrong, I'll still do what y'all asked me to do if y'all have some genuinely good ideas, but I'm only gonna make what I feel like I want to make from now on. And even though I know I'm not a very big channel as I currently stands, only having around, 510 subs at the time of writing this, I genuinely do appreciate all of you, and I hope that you will continue to stick around and watch as I slowly improve. And yeah, I mean, that's really about it. Once again, I would like to ask you that if you liked the video, like it. If you dislike the video, dislike it. If you really like me, go ahead and subscribe. And again, as we did in the last two videos, if you do have constructive criticism of how I could improve my content in the future, I would love to hear it, because I am always open to improving what I make. But yeah, that's about it. I'll see you all in the next video. Stay safe, everyone. And, peace, peace.